The Power of Movement, featuring Michelle Hillier. How do we manage the flow of breath and fire? The ability to burn down, calm ourselves, and ignite passion is vital for those dealing with substance use and mental health. Movement is a part of everyday life, yet we often overlook or ignore some of the therapeutic benefits it can provide to anyone. Michelle Hillier, founder of Breath and Fire, talks about her wellness programs and work to help keep people moving. Michelle is most known for Breath and Fire, a wellness program that helps people identify gaps in their lives that are holding them back from becoming who they truly want to be. Thousands of people have gone through the online wellness course that uses personal reflection, evidence-based mindfulness, and intentional body movement to overcome addiction, relationship issues, transition into their careers, and more. Before starting Breath and Fire, she ran the Grooving Kids program, which created movement courses for schools that reached more than 1 million students in 800 schools, community centers, and camps across North America. She is also a former TEDx presenter. To learn more about Michelle Hillier, you can visit www.breathandfire.com. Thank you, listeners, for tuning into the trailer for Talking Addiction and Recovery podcast. I am your host, Andrew J. Schreier, and this podcast is a follow-up to the book I wrote called Addiction and Recovery. I am an independent clinical supervisor, clinical substance abuse counselor, and licensed professional counselor in the state of Wisconsin. In this profession, the opportunity to learn and become educated is never short, and the ongoing venture of gaining wisdom to help others is definitely a passion I possess. This is where I get to share that information with you and invite guests to share their experience and work. In this podcast, we discuss issues related to addiction, recovery, mental health, counseling, treatment, and several other areas. We discuss alcohol, drugs, gambling, gaming, pornography, and other behaviors that impacts the lives of people I work with, the individuals in their lives, and the community as well. Listen as we talk about these issues, because when we don't talk about them and the silence grows, the worse it becomes. Talking about them continues to bring them into the light, which is our best way of addressing these issues and ultimately helping those who are impacted. You can find the podcast on social media with Instagram at Talking Addiction and Recovery, and Facebook page with Talking Addiction and Recovery Podcast. You can send emails to ask questions, provide feedback, or inquire about being a guest at talkingaddictionandrecovery@gmail.com. Thanks for tuning into the podcast, and with every episode you listen to, I hope you walk away learning something. Welcome to the show, Michelle Hillier.
Thank you, Andrew.
You are most known for Breath and Fire, which is a wellness program that helps people, identify gaps in their lives that are kind of holding them back from who they want to be. And I think we're going to get into some of more details with that. But what's the story behind Breath and Fire?
Oh, great. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. So Breath and Fire was truly birthed from my recovery. So I am, I've recovery from alcohol, I guess, not a good relationship with alcohol from November 2020, and the COVID really kind of took that over the edge. But in my recovery, I was looking for a complement to my program that I was doing that would involve a holistic approach to movement and meditation and really digging deep, personal reflection, personal development. And in the absence of one, I created one. So that's what Breath and Fire was. And it really came from journaling and having these musing over these ideas. And I got to say that in sobriety and having this clear-headed mind and knowledge of my authentic self, and really, it's been quite a journey. It flowed so beautifully. And it's been the most authentic piece of work I've probably created, because I've been in the movement and wellness space for 20 years, fitness, dance. Yoga is quite new in my wheelhouse, but getting people moving and in the wellness, space. And this Breath and Fire just feels like the sort of the perfect trifecta of all the work I've done, again, involving movement, meditation, and personal reflection. So I created a 3-week homecoming program that a lot of people in recovery use it in tandem with their either their 12-step program or whatever they're doing in their recovery. It's in addition to or to complement their recovery. But it's come out of me trying it. It was kind of like the things that I would do in my morning routines and how I would move myself through my day in recovery. I created Breath and Fire to help others experience it.
And it sounds like I like how you said complimentary, because it seems like the stuff that you're doing and talking about is what anyone can really do
Mhm.
for their current recovery. They don't have to look at it as like, I have to follow this program and give this up in order to work like that program. But it seems like the stuff that you're talking about can be applied to whatever someone's doing, wherever they are in their journey.
Exactly.
That's not like a replacement, or it's not conflicting, that it's
No.
actually like this is gonna bring more to what you're doing.
That's right. And I'm a huge believer that, and I didn't make up this term, I love it, but the issues lie in our tissues. So the whole idea of, I've been in so many, circles and meetings and sharing groups and community, just that whole idea of people in recovery. We love to talk and we love to learn and share, but I'm like, where's the body movement? I wish there was more of that. That's my passion, truly. So Breath and Fire does also, from with the trauma informed lens, because we know that when you get people moving that are in recovery, some stuff could come up. So I'm a trauma informed movement educator as well. So all the movements that I work through my programming is really to get the body, the physical body is so part of our recovery, and not just yoga, but like functional, moving to music and shaking and stretching and doing some yoga fusion stuff. So yeah, it's been really nice. And it's not just for people that are in recovery from alcohol and substance abuse. It can be anybody. That's what you mentioned in the beginning. Breath and Fire is for anybody identifying that they have something sort of that needs a shift. So they feel a little off. And I think we can say that most people kind of do. I feel
Yeah.
like something is kind of off, whether it be relationships or their spirituality or their career or their physical health or their partner in their life. They're something just to get curious about. I love that word, to get curious. And that's what the homecoming program does in a 3-week sort of intensive period. And that's one of the flagship programs of Breath and Fire.
That's amazing. And one thing that just hearing you talk has opened my mind to the concept of movement. And one part of it is the book The Body Keeps a Score really
Mhm.
dives into like what the body physically goes through, and then how that like can can turn into like some of the things that we see and work with. And when I was hearing you talk about movement for so long, as I've been in this career for 18 years as a therapist and counselor, that there's so many times where we like rejected that idea of movement when it came to like therapy and groups. Like I remember sometimes, like you're not allowed to have, I worked in treatment programs where it's like you're not allowed to be playing music or can't have music because that's like not good for you. Groups were supposed to be like you're sitting down and like you're sitting like almost like a classroom where you like you can't move around. If you are, like you're being a distraction, or you're just like not taking it serious. I remember what I loved with kids when I used to work with kids in a group home, having 6 or 8 inner city kids sitting in a circle saying, "Hey, let's talk about things," did not always go well. But there were
Mhm.
times where like if I was outside with them shooting hoops, playing basketball, like I could have amazing conversations with them and even like with each other. But it was often like, this isn't therapy. This is not
Right.
all that. So as I'm hearing you, I'm thinking like our profession, like with therapy and counseling and substance use, has sort of like shut down movement, which sounds like that's a terrible idea.
Well, yeah, and I totally hear what you're saying there. And I have done a lot of work with kids too, and that could be a whole other, I could talk about that for half an hour. That's where my work initially started, was in education. I teach at some universities part-time, teaching teachers how to teach movement to kids. But some of my most, glorious memories that where I saw transformation was in those inner city schools, where I was brought in to work with the whole school, and the resistance and the behavior, the when I was doing even my introduction, when they're all sitting, when we were up moving creatively to music and they got to be expressive, there were teachers going like, we've never seen students move like this. And then we tracked their progress like after the session in classes. And we can't deny that when you move your body, your brain has more readiness to learn. So where do we lose this as adults? And I love talking about this because I see it in the spectrum where kids get to like that grade 5, 6, 7. And I have a 5-year-old, a grade 5 he's 10. I have a son who's 10. So he's like my little walking specimen at home. You can watch him grow. When he was little, no problem moving and in a, totally no inhibitions. Then you get to the 10, 11, 12, we start to shut down. Teenagers really shut down. Adults, they're afraid to move their body because they've been conditioned that they don't do it, they're not doing it the right way, or they think they're going to get it wrong. So that is my messaging when I teach movement or facilitate, is I have to do a lot of positive messaging, especially with adults that are coming to me with resistance, either in recovery or struggling with their own issues. The body holds so much. We store it down like a file folder. It's just all the issues, and we're afraid to move it because we're also afraid what's it going to bring up. So I'm really cognizant of that when I'm doing movement. Like I think as well, when we get into recovery, we have a lot of goals. We get sober and all of a sudden we want to hit the gym and do this and do that and eat healthy. And I think you got to be realistic too about what your body can do. You got to treat it really gently in recovery. And maybe you were a big, huge fitness enthusiast when you were in your 20s. Now you're in your 40s and you're sober. You're not going to be hitting the gym probably as hard as you did when you're in your 20s. How about gentle walks and, twisting and stretching and just, again, being gentle with it. So I did some volunteering at the treatment center I went to. I was a client in 2020.
That's
and
great.
I love it. I go back and volunteer there as a peer support alumni, and I did some movement with them, and it was really cool to see that addition to their program.
I didn't think about that transition part of like as you get older, because as more about like movement, yoga, mindfulness, and some of these things have gone on, I can think in my times where I've been at a conference and someone's trying to get everyone to stand up and trying to get everyone to like do some things. You can sense like the audience is like resistant, or they're just like embarrassed, or they're kind of wondering what's going on with this. I was at a conference last year where one of the headlining events was actually everyone participating in drum circles, which someone brought in like drums from all different places, and everyone got to sort of like work with that. But there is sort of that like embarrassment, or I'm not doing this right. And
it's also because we're asking them to be vulnerable and creative, and we get that creativity sort of conditioned out of us unless we nurture. We haven't practiced it, and we don't know what's going to come out, and we're really vulnerable in recovery too, to make errors and to not make errors, but to look stupid.
Yeah,
we're sober. We don't have anything to our coping skills. That's what I find with movement with me on a daily. I'm so tuned in. Like I'm so plugged into what my body needs. I always thought I was, even for like decades while I was in like active alcohol use disorder, high functional drinking. But now that I'm sober, super plugged into my body, that when I feel the feels, something, whether it be joy or anger or whatever it is, or nervousness, my coping before was to pour a drink. Now my coping is like, I need to like swing and shake and like, I don't know, stretch. And it's amazing what our body can do to cope if we just get up and move it.
And there was a book that I forgot the title of it, but it was about a guy who I think like was, I don't know if he was having a heart attack, but he was having some sort of like medical issue, and he was in the ambulance, and he was trying to like kind of like shake it out and kind of like yell and just trying to get it out. And sometimes when someone seemed distressed, we do like the opposite. We tell people to like, we'll calm down, or we like hug people or try to do that. And I remember part of the story was like, if a dog were to jump in the water and the dog comes out, one of the things that it like automatically does is like shake and move and get that off. But like if a kid fell in, right away it would be like wrapping them up, like keeping that down. And to me, it's part of that. As we talk about the hurdles to practicing it, it's incredible because the benefits are like almost instantaneous.
They are instant. I did it yesterday. I was sitting for a long time. I felt stagnant. I couldn't describe. I'm like, I need to put on like 3 songs I put on three, I love EDM, like dance music. I put on three songs, but about 9, 10 minutes. And I did my own thing. And it immediately I kind of like got this smile and this rush. And I wasn't sweating. That's not what I mean, but it wasn't like an afterburn of a workout. But I felt I always say, let's move some energy. That's what I tell my participants. We got to move some energy. So that idea of shaking, I love that you brought up that, Andrew, because there's also something I read where after animals are in a fight, they shake after to regulate themselves,
Yeah.
to get them back. So they got to shake it out after they have a fight or after like they shake after the water. So yeah, and that's why I keep bringing up that word shaking. I've really transitioned from being a traditional like fitness instructor and personal trainer and dance teacher. I did that for so many years. And now in recovery, I'm trying all these new things that I call functional movement to music. Still, I think music is so, so powerful, but shaking, twisting, rotating, jumping, swaying, like functional movements. That's what I call them. So they're really like not intimidating for anybody.
And humming, I've heard of humming
Humming,
being
yes.
being there's a couple like books I've read sometimes like that's trauma related where there's an exercise on like just humming and doing
Mhm.
that, which is it's almost like it, it's not complicated, and to us it seems like it should be more complicated
Yeah.
in order for this to be considered, like really,
Healing. Yeah.
evidence and stuff like that. But it doesn't have to be,
Mm-mm.
it
Keep it
doesn't have to
simple.
be do this for 6 to 8 weeks and then you'll feel something, or you need 3 months of this in order to
Mhm.
experience like some benefit or relief. Like the things that you're talking about, you could do that right in the moment and you can
Can.
feel some sort of benefit with really not a lot of risk. Like if
Not a lot of risk.
the risk is embarrassment,
Maybe, but
that's
if you're on your own, you just want to
yeah.
you have to get out of your own head. Like, I feel ridiculous. Oh well, like got to get over it. But yeah, it's and that you're right. The results are instantaneous, and it really resets your everything, like your nervous system. You're on a cellular level, even patting your body, grabbing your own body.
Mhm.
So yeah, so I'm really
Tapping
passionate
like the
about
chest,
that.
like the heart. I've
Yep,
I've heard of doing that.
yep,
um it's interesting that we were talking about this because one of the things I saw was like your TED video, right? The
right.
TEDx video. And part of me was watching you do this. And as a clinician, a part of me was like, okay, when's this gonna end? And she's gonna start doing like a talk or like a presentation. Because most of those
Mhm.
are one person talking and everyone else is listening and paying attention. But your session was the whole audience was the presenters in a
Part of it,
way. Like you were
right?
leading it, but like everyone there was a part of it. And there didn't need to be any more. Like there was no like, where's the slide that has this amazing, like, oh my goodness, like you're just waiting for this bite
Yeah,
of knowledge, but
you're right.
it didn't need that. That's not what it was for at all.
No, it's how I when I'm on stages like that, I want to leave the audience with not information, but how they feel. How do you feel after that? So they have to be involved. I can give them all the information about the power of movement and why it's beneficial, but I really want them it has to be experiential, and it has to leave them with a feeling like, oh, that's the effect of my presentations. Now that one was like a lot more movement. I do have a keynote that has a little more talking, sharing my story. But anything I do, even if somebody books me for like a 10-minute, as you were mentioning, conference activation, and they want me just to do something kind of high energy, I always say, we're going to do some meditation, movement, and a little personal reflection, or like, set the tone for the day or whatever it is. Those three pillars are in everything I do, if it's 5 minutes or 1 hour or 3 hours. Yeah, they're
That's
complementary.
great.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I like the idea of like if someone can walk away from something, there's that knowledge piece that I could, oh, I listened to this presenter and they shared this and I heard this, and I can walk away, sort of knowing that and sharing that. But it's a lot different when someone can walk away with, this is what I've experienced.
Yeah, or how I felt. I was so nervous,
Right.
but, I didn't think I'd do it, but did it, and I felt so out of my comfort zone, but I did it, and that's the lasting memory of how it affected them.
Yeah, that's really incredible. And I'm glad to see it more often. Like I said, the drum
Mm,
circle, seeing, you know, people talk about like get up, stand, like let's move around, let's shake, let's do this. I've seen it more now than I have when I first started, because that's
Mhm.
just, I just wish I would see it. I'm still waiting for more of a bridge into work with actual like clients and patients, like
Right.
seeing more where it's like not just discuss breathing techniques, but
But
like,
actually doing
you
it,
know,
yeah.
yeah, like
And
did a humming or doing something like this. Like I want to see more of that, like actually applied with clients and patients, and seeing that actually like even, you know, documented that this was a, a method that we use to help.
well, maybe you and I are onto something here.
Yeah. I mean, why? I mean, that'd be great to see, because a
Because
lot
I
of,
would love to, I mean, I saw such an absence in the treatment center I went to in terms of movement, only because that's my lens. I understand I'm biased. I come in with a biased opinion saying one yoga class a week. Like, where's the this? Where's the that? Aren't we singing? Aren't we drumming? Are we doing more, movement stuff? But that was okay. Just it's how it rolls. But even in recovery, when people are in recovery, I'm starting to that, and that's why homecoming, I created that, like I said, to be a complementary or in tandem to someone's foundational 12-step program or whatever program they are working in their recovery. But then I'd also like to see the creation of like a breath and fire for recovery, where it's an hour long, half an hour sharing circle, half an hour movement. And it's something that people could go to, not to replace a 12-step meeting, but I would share like a quote or a reading or something we'd share as a group, and then we would move together, and I would invite people in all walks of recovery to come, or loved ones or anybody involved in recovery.
yeah, that's a good question. I was going to ask you, have you done any of this work or seen this done with family members or loved ones or significant others as well?
Not yet. I mean, I launched Breath and Fire in April, so I have only worked with people either in recovery or just regular, humans that want to get curious about moving their body more, or to making a little change in their life. But that's definitely something I'd be completely open to, is a family friendly Breath and Fire for recovery experience.
Yeah, because I know like with, you know, that's always been a, you know, incorporate family members into the other's recovery and treatment. And there's been so many ways of doing that with, you know, everything from like retreats to like, you know,
Mhm.
1 day workshops to different activities and exercises. But I I get the idea that the movement stuff and
Mhm.
everything is like a great way to get everyone on a same page.
It would.
That that's a lot easier than to be like, well, you know what, we're all going to talk about why you don't trust
Right.
this person, or we're going to talk about like family dynamics, we're going to discuss, you know, family roles and what's going on here and all
Yeah.
that. Like I feel like the movement aspect would be a way to get people together on, at least as close as we can, to a place where vulnerability can start,
Mhm.
or we're in this together,
I was going to
we're
say
all feeling the
vulnerability.
benefit. I think that would be really beneficial also to the family members and loved ones who are impacted by someone's use.
And it's just, you know what? Let's be honest. Well, from my experience, it's just also a really fun experience to do with your family members, that you're going through such, such hard stuff together, recovery and digging up trauma and doing therapy. If you had that one outlet that you had with other family members in recovery from other, groups, it would just be a really nice, positive experience as well, with benefits attached to it. So, okay, my
Yeah.
brain is going now, Andrew.
Yeah. That's great though, because I think that's just, you know, ways to connect the other people that are involved. And it's so hard to do. And this is a way that can do that without what someone might worry about. You know, I don't want to go there and talk about these things, or I don't want to share
Mhm.
these things. But if I go there and it's about doing this, like this is, it's a good starting point. You know, it's
It's
a
a great
good,
starting point. And
yeah.
I could open up a sharing circle. That was my idea at the end. Not, something light and that everyone could contribute or you could pass. So it still would have a little depth to it, but it would involve some movement meditation as well.
One of the things that I found on your website about, you know, description about what you do in the story was you often ask clients to describe the last time they felt like themselves. I think that's amazing and incredible. I'm very curious like where that came from and what
Hmm.
you do with someone when you ask that, because I can tell you that's not like a common intake question or assessment question. That's it's not even really a diagnostic question, but I think uh, there's something onto that about when's the last time you felt like yourself. So can you shed light on that whole
Sure. Yeah,
concept?
absolutely. That question came from me getting to my state of recovery now and sobriety, where I was like, what happened along the way? So I track back to when did I feel what happened to me to get to the point where I had to be at a treatment center and life sort of crumbled around me during COVID. Now it was definitely situational, because of COVID kind of took what was already going on and like just accelerated everything because of the isolation and the loss of work and everything around it. Everyone has a story with COVID. But I thought, okay, I'm 46 at the time. And when did what happened along the way? When did alcohol play a role for me? And I was attaching it to my substance use. And I thought, you know what? I think when I was about 24 and I graduated university, worked on a cruise ship, I had this anything is possible sort of attitude and outlook on life. And I truly felt it. And then I look at sort of all the decisions and things I did along the 20 years that did not tap into, and I knew I had this inner knowing when I was making those decisions or getting into those relationships or taking those jobs or anything along the way. I knew my inner voice, my home knew something was off, but I went with it. And then along the way, drinking sort of helped me tolerate those decisions. So whenever they would really manifest, like with a job or with when my loss of my father, or anything that was really tough, I knew deep down I wasn't living this authentic life that I knew was possible. So that's when the substance use would really ramp up. So asking somebody, when did you actually feel like yourself? What I'm trying to tap into is what's changed along the way and what are you doing to cope with, like, how are you handling knowing that you're not living your authentic self? And you're right, it's a huge question to ask. And oftentimes people get really stumped on it because they think, well, I mean, I'm so different now, but I have all these things I have to do now. I have a mortgage and I have a career and I have children. I can't be like that version of myself. But we can tap into, like, how did you feel back then? It's just scratching the surface a little bit to just get people thinking about what was going on when you felt like your authentic self, and can we get there a little bit again? What changes can you make to get back to that man or woman or girl or boy? So yeah, it's a big question.
Yeah, it's a big identity piece,
It's a big
which
identity piece. And I connect
which
my sobriety, or no, my I guess drinking. Anytime I felt like my identity was being taken, isn't the wrong, I don't want to say the word taken, but that like I had double hip replacement in 2018. So my identity as a movement person, dancer, strong, that like drinking ramped up during that time. When I had the birth of my son, who I like adore to death, he's 10, but my identity as a woman on stage, presenting and traveling business owner was taken. I had to become a mom. When my dad died, becoming like a daughter of a loss of a parent, my mom getting dementia, like all these things where my identity was being taken. And yes, they are big life things, but I was coping the wrong way. I was coping with alcohol.
yeah, and I think that's something where like as humans, we all have that identity work and
Mhm.
discovery and lost and like constantly like looking at that. But then you add like substance use, you add addiction to it, and that is a whole nother component to that identity piece. And I know that there's identity work that's done in like substance use like treatment and recovery. I don't think it's necessarily called that,
Mm.
but I don't think we do enough of like that exploration of like self and identity. And I think this is a great question that really gets people to even reflect on it. And I imagine if I asked that to someone and they were silent, one, then we get into that who can be more comfortable being silent.
Mhm. Yeah, right.
In my time I've learned to appreciate that versus, jumping to say something to stop it. But also, like, I don't know, I wouldn't expect someone to necessarily have to know that answer. I they
No, no, I agree. And that pause, because you're asking them to think like I oftentimes would talk with clients too, and they'll say, I used to be so, X, Y, and Z, whatever. I used to be so outgoing. I don't know what happened to me. I used to be so comfortable in my own body. I don't know what happened. And then you just sort of like start asking questions. Like something did happen. Let's get curious about it.
Yeah, that's great. I really like to consider that about, when's the last time you felt like yourself. And I can imagine with some people, that answer could be years ago.
It could be in their teenager. I'd ask someone and they said,
Yeah.
I was a camp counselor. I was that she's in her 40s. When I was a camp counselor, every summer in my teens, I was just myself. I was funny. I was the world. I took risks. People gravitated towards me. It's like, what happened?
Yeah. Does that also attach to the idea with part of the description of the program was, like with the bridging gaps or finding those gaps? Is there a correlation with that?
There is, yeah. So in week 1 of the program, they identify, I call it the fated life, and I have different categories, almost like the wheel of life, where you're looking at ranking relationships and, physical health, emotional health, where you live, your career. And then in the 3rd week, after work in this first and second week, journaling and doing some other activities, we then look at like the bright life, like what would it look like, how important it is to you. So if you're ranking your physical health currently at a 1 out of 5, but it's a 5 out of 5 important to you, then we got to look at that. So they can actually take their sheet of the ranking, their little flames, and then they can put it like up against a light and see exactly where the gaps are, what currently is going on and what they find is important. And then in the 3rd week, we create this sort of roadmap home where we give ideas how they can start making small shifts. And I know it's a very short 3-week intensive program. It's not a big, it's not a 6-month coaching program. It is intensive. It's for the right client that is like ready to make a change.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And it involves, the big piece too, it involves movement and meditation. So oftentimes people sign up and they can register anywhere because we do it on Zoom at 6 a.m. and 8 p.m. So I'm developing this idea of a morning routine for people with the importance of getting your body up and moving and I guide it on Zoom, meditating and then journaling right in the morning and then an evening as well. So it has, yes, they're doing this personal self-directed work, but they also are guided by me 3 times a week. Connected over Zoom. So I have people from all over Canada, some from the US have registered the last programs. So yeah.
Now, would I be, in my mind, I'm connecting this a little bit to some people might be like, well, I can breathe on my own. I can shake on my own. But to me, it also sounds a little bit like the physical therapy trap, like someone can be shown how to do the physical therapy exercises, but when they go home
yeah,
then
that was me. I'm where I'm like, show me the exercises and give me the band, give me the ball. And then I'll look at it and go, oh, I wish I could just go see him and he could do this with me.
Right.
It's the accountability, Andrew. People pressing click on the Zoom, the 12 tiles or 20 tiles, whatever's there are there. Welcome. Everyone has their screens on. There is so much more accountability when you are showing up for somebody. And I lead you through it. Like you just get to be an open participant, and I will do that for you. But the breathing, it is guided. So, and it's, there's techniques. You're right though. Someone could say, oh, I could put on an app and listen to that. But again, it's the group accountability that you're showing up and you feel good. We feel good when we show up for something.
Right. Now, the movements, all that, I can see where the breath part comes in. Can we talk about the fire? Where's the concept with the fire? I want to hear about that.
Yeah, the breath. So the breath part was something that I realized I needed more of in my life. Breath for me. So breath and fire represent 2 things. So the breath is the calming, the grounding, the solitude, the introvert side of me, like the going in. The fire is people's passion and extroversion and being in crowds and doing hobbies and moving, all that stuff that when you're at that level. And I realized that the last 25 years, I've been on fire. Like I've been a blazing inferno, and I did not know how to find my calm. I didn't even have the self knowledge or to tap into that to know when I needed to. I had no self regulation. I would just, it was very chaotic. I would call my life chaotic, but I thought it looked just, that's how I live. I say yes to everything. I had serious FOMO my whole life before I got in recovery. So wouldn't want to miss a party, wouldn't want to miss anything. And I would just be running on fire. And so now that I've found ways to calm myself, perfect example, I'm in a social gathering. I would have stayed right to the end, been the last one there. And that's part of the alcohol, where alcohol comes into it as well. It would have me tolerate situations that I would no longer, really want to be at, but I'd stay longer because of what was going on. But now I have so much awareness. It's about this high level of self-awareness. I've been on fire for like 3 hours. I need to go home. Like I need to tap out and go home and find my breath. And that might mean just leaving and going for a walk on the water, coming home, having a rest, or meditating, or anything, having a bath. So I'm highly aware of my breath and my fire. And we take an inventory. Our first journal in the homecoming program, day one, is we take a breath and fire inventory. What brings you joy? And then categorize it in breath and in fire. So you're developing your own sort of tools and then it's recognizing when you need one or the other. Because there's also days where I'm very calm, quiet, and hasn't really talked to anybody, admin work day, and I know I need some fire. That's rare, because I'm usually I usually need breath. But there are days when I need to get out. I need to make a phone call. I need to go move my body. I need to see people, what's going on tonight. But it's this, I want to find not the blazing inferno, not the pilot light, which I was flickering on during COVID when things were really, really dim. I want to find this controlled blaze. And that's awareness of when I need both in my day.
Yeah. In my mind, that creates, so much connection with substance use addiction, like that causes, the inferno at times and can
You're
burn
pouring
everything
gasoline
down.
on the fire.
And then
alcohol.
but then using, breath to calm, to peace and all that. But then I've also seen some people who they no longer are using substances, or they're no longer engaging in some behaviors. And there isn't just this automatic passion. I think that's one of the common misconceptions, like, oh, get sober and everything will be great. Like stop using and everything's going to be fantastic. All the problems will go away. And that sounds like a very nice commercial advertisement for treatment and sobriety. But the reality is, there's a lot someone goes through when they first get sober. And sometimes it's not fun. It's not enjoyable. But I do see some people get stuck in a little bit of like that no man's land, where they're like, they had chaos in their life and so much of it was consumed by this. And all of a sudden there's calming and there's some peace, but then all of a sudden they don't know necessarily where to go or what to do.
That's a very good point. Because a lot of times they would create the fire with the chaos of drinking and drugging.
Yeah. So you're talking about redirecting that with,
that's right,
with fire of like passion and all those things that can be really good things. But I don't think people are often taught that or shown that.
Well, yeah, I think we're redefining who we are in sobriety and recovery. Is like, what do I like to do? Because a lot of our time was filled up with connecting over alcohol, for me at least. Socializing. That's one of the reasons I didn't get sober for so long. I thought, what will I do with my time? It was woven into all my social situations and even my work functions. And I worked in I was doing, right before COVID, 2020 was booked with a ton of corporate work, like keynotes and sessions and travel, and that like escape away and party. That also, my work was embedded in alcohol at all these events. And I thought, what will I do if I don't drink? Well, it's redefining yourself, and it's scary. It can be like intimidating in a way, or like trying new things, like going to a concert and I'm not drinking doesn't bother me at all. Going to a music festival and thinking no drinking doesn't. The obsession is lifted for me in terms of drinking based on the work that I've done the last year and a bit. But it's putting yourself out there and trying new things that are kind of the fire things. Because you're right, the calming breath are a bit more safe. I like baking and playing with my pets and going for walks, and I'm finding this is my breath. But then how am I getting fired up here in my day that doesn't involve a party and my substance? So it's just all new.
And I like the idea of like now we're tying in like movement, because there's a lot of times where when I worked in like group home residential, we would try to get them involved in things, like some activities and some interest. And sometimes they just hated it, like, let's get you guys set up to go like bowling one night just to get in. That terrible time, like horrible time, which I understand, because what they're going through, what their body's going through, what their mind's recovering from, like with getting the substances out of them. It's just it's and nothing matches that, right? Like if I got a guy who was using like cocaine and that was such a adrenaline for them, bowling might seem like such a dud. But part of it
That's
is when people avoid that, like when they avoid moving and get stuck with, well, what'd you guys do what'd you guys do outside of, well, group, we sat in group all day. Well, what'd you do after group? Well, we watched TV. Like we're like,
the movement.
no wonder
Yeah.
why sometimes people are stuck in no man's land when
Yeah,
there's no movement. Like
that's
literally,
right.
let's
Yeah, I went
get
for
some
walks all the
movement.
time at the treatment center. I went for long walks every morning. That's where I got my joy of like walking. I would always think that was, oh, that's boring. And I walked and walked and walked. And that's been a big part of my recovery is walking. And that started at the treatment center because there wasn't really a lot of programming that was physical. So I thought I'll get up early at 6 before we started our group in the morning, and I'll go for a long walk in nature. That's gonna get me going here. And I had some people join and see the benefits of that. But yeah, body movement, and even like back to the bowling thing, we also don't know, like there's an uncomfortability of being in our own skin and not being drunk or high, doing an activity we would connect probably normally with something where you could kind of check out. So actually, it's this idea of like teaching people how to be truly present and finding joy in the moment. And I can say that out of experience. I do now. I can see it with my son, with my friends, going to the batting cages, going to concerts, going to the beach. I don't need anything but the moment to actually find joy in it. And that's new for me.
I'm glad you brought up the walking with when you were in treatment, because I had a guy who, this story always, one of the many stories that stands out with people I've worked with was, there's a guy that, every morning he shot 50 free throws in the driveway. And because there wasn't much we could do, it was a residential program and it was pretty restrictive where you couldn't leave like the property, which wasn't very big.
Okay.
But every morning he shot 50 free throws. He'd grab basketballs, shoot free throws. Now, the other guys in the program weren't a big fan of that because they'd still be trying to sleep or,
Okay.
or something like
Clunk,
that. And
clunk, clunk.
doing that. But
Yeah.
I remember I'd come in early a couple times, and he he would shoot hoops. I would talk to him, and he even talked about the benefit. He'd say, I would get up in the fresh air in me and the moving around. It would, it's kind of like he was accomplishing something, and he was almost even like a skill, like getting better at it like every day because he was working at it. And I remember that when he was getting ready to be discharged successfully, a conversation with him occurred where it was, he's like, I'm really gonna miss this. And I was
Mhm.
like, well, like, miss what? He's like, well, shooting free throws. And I'm like, why does it have to stop? Like, why can't that, can you not get a hoop where you're going? Or is there no way you can get a basketball and go somewhere to do that? But it's like things like that, seen as like a time filler, seen as, just something to do to avoid, being bored,
Mhm.
not looking at the true benefits that movement like that has. I
Yeah.
think people still don't grasp that about the benefit
I agree.
of it.
Yeah.
So like
I,
how do we educate people on this is not just to, bide your time. This isn't just to make sure you're moving around because we have to have like a physical activity in our program, but how do we educate people more on like really the benefit of movement? What are good talking points with people?
I think number one is they have, instead of talking about it, they have to actually feel it. So they have to
Mm.
experience it. So if they can get anything, I know we can tell them, but actually get them up and try something with them. So they have to have that buy-in after experiencing it. But that's a tough question because there is resistance around it for so many reasons. So I think it's, oh man, I think it's finding something that brings them personal joy. So not forcing them to do the basketball shooting or the bowling or the moving with me, whatever I'm doing. It's like having them get curious about what brought you joy to move when you were a kid? What did you love to do? Oh, I used to love my skateboard. Get a skateboard. So make it, I think we have to find people's personal passions and what brought them joy of moving. Oh, I used to love, swimming laps. I haven't swam in like probably 20 years. Find a pool but we have to get their brain thinking back to what brought them joy, perhaps when they were younger in terms of movement. I had a guy say that one of his breath and his inventory was fishing. He forgot how much he loved fishing. And that was something that he added to his breath inventory to remember to think about going fishing for his calm.
I do like that idea of individualizing it and trying to find it through them. Because I think right now,
Yeah.
what a lot of places and people do is the more of let's find this one activity and then everyone can go do it versus do we even know if that's something they like that
How
they
do we personalize it?
like they
Yeah.
want to do. I think it's more of like a blanket type thing where it's like, well, we got these 12 people in here or 20 people. We got to find something that for them to all go do versus more like individualizing like a movement
Mm-hmm.
plan or like a movement
Absolutely. And
inventory.
and Andrew, that's what I would love to like. I got my recovery coach who did the 60-hour training back in May of 2021. And I don't know if I'll ever work as a coach. It's just on my, it's in my radar a little bit, but this idea of a wellness coach in recovery where I would look at their recovery plan upon exit from a treatment center and say, like, what is happening physically? What is your physical plan? What are you doing nutritionally? I'm not a nutritionist, but I can help with that absolutely from being in that world for so long. But what are you doing for movement in your personal recovery? Like, and that's where those questions would come out, finding what they loved, trying this, trying that, finding something they're passionate about, because they're going to have more success and more accountability if they do something they love.
And I like it, as we talk about, I think a great, with questions on, like when we first meet people, we do like intakes assessments, we do treatment plans, and we try to, pull some things from the individual into their plan, like their
Hmm.
recovery. And we ask about like strengths, we ask about, sometimes culture, we ask about like hobbies and activities. I wonder, you know, what it would be like to just as a standard to somewhere like in that area, ask like, what are you doing to move?
To move.
Or
Yeah.
or what do you like to do that
Or what did you like
helps
to
you? Yeah,
do?
right.
Yeah. Yeah, because that can be a healthy coping mechanism for them. Absolutely.
I wonder what that would be like to start having that question asked
Mm.
like
Yeah.
in a very standard, like assessment,
Yeah.
interview, or just to even see what people would say, just to see what people
Yeah.
would start to throw out there. And even that concept of like, do you think this is something that we can use? So I definitely know I'm going to start asking that more often when I work
Okay, cool.
with individuals
Yeah.
and to talk to other clinicians about that too, because we're hearing more about it. We're being talked to about it, that stuff's being shared more. We're seeing people encourage others to practice it. Like we said, at conferences, we're seeing speakers get clinicians to be a little bit more uncomfortable. But I still think there's a lot of work to do to include this movement with
I do too.
individuals and clients and patients, that it's still not at that level where it needs to be.
Mhm. For sure. I totally agree. And again, I'm getting back to that idea where in their recovery plan, oh, I'm going to, work out 3 times at the gym. Well, let's get realistic. Like, Is there a gym nearby? Can you afford it? Are you really going to go? What's your body? Is your body ready to jump into a workouts? Like, let's take it easy. So being like looking at, yeah, just not challenging is the wrong word, but getting curious. There's that word again, getting them to get curious about how they want to move their body and how it's going to benefit them in recovery.
Yeah, I mean, it's anyone can do some of the things that you're talking about, very
Anybody, I've
low.
had every type of accessibility, accommodate anybody. It's for everybody. The movements are for everybody, everybody.
Mhm.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. It's just interesting to dive more into it and understand, more about what the movement does, the breath, the fire, what we see
Mhm.
out of it, the benefits from it. And I think that's just the big next step is to do. I know here we are talking about it, but then the next big step is really for people to start doing it, and the benefits are going to be there like
Hey,
right away. And it doesn't it can be short term that you can feel it, and that in of itself is going to get people to recognize that. We just got to try to encourage them to keep doing it.
that's right.
This
Absolutely.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for all the information you shared. Where can listeners find more out about you, or
Yeah.
learn more about what you have? Where can they find you?
They can find me at breathandfire.com or on Instagram. I'm Michelle underscore breath and fire. And the next homecoming program starts October 17th. You can join from anywhere, and all the information's on Instagram and on my website. And there's a fall sale right now. And you do not have to be in recovery from substance use. You can be just curious about making a little shift in your life involving movement, meditation, and personal reflection.
That's great. So I just want again thank you for taking the time to talk to us about it and share everything that you have about what you're doing. It's exciting stuff. It's enjoyable, and like we said, we talked a lot about the benefits with something like substance use and addiction and recovery, but it's also something that we can do just to add some joy, some
Right.
fun, some
Yeah.
entertainment, which everyone can do. So
Everyone
thank
can, and
you.
I always like to say, back to the fire analogy, like your inner flame has not gone out. Anybody can find their flame.
Yeah, that's amazing. So thank you for being a guest and sharing all this information. And if anything, we just want to keep talking about people moving and keep on moving.
That's right. Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Andrew.
everything. Take care.
You too.